a resolution that is sponsored by Councilman Shadid, White, and Pettis. And Pete, you've kind of taken the lead on this. You want to say anything before we start hearing from people?
No, I don't think so. I think we ought to just go ahead and listen to the people that are here.
Okay. We have a number of people that have signed up to speak on this item. I'll ask them to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Debbie Hogue Downing.
Debbie Hogue Downing, 5936 North Sapulpa, Oklahoma City. Thank you. Greetings today. I come in support of the resolution. I'm very proud of Oklahoma City. I'm so proud that we are a progressive city. We've done many things to make us progressive, and other people from other states know that. So I think it's time that we look at the different cultures within Oklahoma City and we become more progressive in that area, that we learn about our culture, the Native American culture per se, and let other people know more about it. In Oklahoma City, there is not just one tribe here, there are many tribes, whereas in other cities, there are the nations based there. So we're a very diverse group here in Oklahoma City. Also, I was excited yesterday to see the leadership at the university levels with OU, OCU, and Southeastern taking a stand on Indigenous People Day. That was very exciting. Also, there's other cities within the United States, as Albuquerque, New Mexico, and also Lawrence, Kansas, which are near Oklahoma. And here in our own state with Anadarko, Oklahoma taking a lead. So I think it's time Oklahoma City take a lead and take a stand for this resolution. So I encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Amanda Anderson.
Amanda Anderson, 4800 South Foster Road, number 219, here in Oklahoma City. I wanted to come to you guys today as an individual who comes from mixed heritage. I am Choctaw. I am also English, French, Scottish, and Irish. As a person of mixed heritage, supporting an Indigenous Peoples Day would be extremely important to me because I would be able to share my Choctaw culture. I would also be able to include those who are my family members who are non-Indian in learning about my culture as well as many others. I'm also a future educator. When we support things like celebrating Christopher Columbus, we always talk about how he sailed the ocean blue and he discovered people, but those people were already here. That land was already here. As Americans, we have an opportunity to define ourselves. When we're celebrating someone who did not even come to this continent, we're not defining ourselves, we're defining someone else. Columbus only made it to the West Indies, he didn't make it here. He did pave the way, however, for people to come here. My tribe made contact with Spanish people who came following Columbus. I benefited from that, from having this mixed heritage. I can't support someone who brought the negative things that he brought, though. He brought slavery, he brought disease. He brought some goods that Native people were able to use. In return, our Native people had things that Europeans were able to use. If we are supporting Columbus Day still, instead of Indigenous Peoples Day, we're saying that those Europeans who came over are the only ones who matter. And that is something that really needs to be considered. It's hard for me to walk into two worlds. I do it every day. I have to wonder about people like my daughter, who has blonde hair and blue eyes, has been learning her culture, but how are her grandchildren, who will be around in 2092, going to be able to handle things like what I had to experience in 1992 during the 500-year celebration, where I had a teacher hand me a costume and say, well, here, have your heathen outfit, that's what you're going to be. Recognizing Christopher Columbus's contributions, yes, is important, but not recognizing Indigenous people for the contributions that we have made as well to shape this country would be very wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Elena Tale.
Hi, my name is Elena Tallate, and I live at 1507 Northwest 19th Street. I'm a student at OU, and yesterday I got to participate in Oklahoma's first formal Indigenous Peoples Day celebration at my university. And I was so excited to get to share my culture with other students at OU. And honestly, I expected there to be only Native American students like me there. But then I was surprised to see how Indigenous Peoples Day actually brought people together. During the flag procession, Brazilian natives from South America marched next to me, Mexican natives from Central America marched next to me, Canadian natives from North America marched next to me. And we all came from these diverse cultural backgrounds, but we share a common history as Indigenous original people of these Americas. All of our ancestors faced great tragedy at the hands of European settlers who oftentimes sought to destroy us in the past. We're all proud peoples who have positively contributed to the story of the Americas, and all of us have survived, and we've thrived. Despite the efforts of local, state, and national governments to smother our cultures. The event at OU was a huge success. I couldn't believe the turnout, and I was really proud of my university for decommemorating Columbus Day and showing Indigenous people that we matter, we still matter today. And passing this resolution in Oklahoma City will not bring Indigenous lives lost due to colonization any justice or reconciliation, but recognizing our resilience and our struggles is a step towards a long journey of healing from this historical trauma that we've faced at the hands of the U.S. government. And I hope to see that in Oklahoma City, too.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sunhawk Hill.
My name is Sunhawk Hill. I live in Ada, Route 1, or P.O. Box 2243. I'm going to try to make this brief. Tribes in Oklahoma contribute to over 87,700 jobs in the state. We make $10.8 billion impact on the state. The city's seal right here represents a symbol of positive change. Celebrating Columbus Day in any respect violates our rights of respect and dignity, which are protected under the legally binding Universal Declaration Treaty on Human Rights. Under Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution as the supreme law of the land, under the 9th Amendment, it states the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The first line of the UN Declaration of Human Rights refers to the recognition of the inherent dignity and of the inalienable rights of all members of the human family. Continuing such offensive expression with respect of Columbus would be a careless act that perpetuates the apparent harm, that in which would be obvious to any reasonable and prudent person. The continuation results in disruption to public peace and public order, violating the ideal of equality between members of society. The offensive celebration has the propensity to cause and does cause social division and social unrest. The offensive act that is clearly harmful to ethnicities that have endured centuries of harm only exacerbates the existing ethnic tensions. And the harm we now have knowledge of should make us, under our own laws, liable for the foreseeable harm that results from the continuation of offensive expressions. We pay taxes. We are the people who cook your food. We drive your buses, police your neighborhoods. Like other cities and states, change would discontinue disrespect and deprivation of our fundamental rights under the U.S. Constitution, Human Rights Treaty, and the Christian principle, treat others like you want to be treated. Common sense tells us that reducing the racial tensions and separation in the state would clearly be in everyone's best interest. America is against terrorism. How does that look when we celebrate or vote on what our laws today clearly define as a terrorist? Think of all the indigenous people that will come from all around to spend money in the city yearly to celebrate. Over 400 people gathered yesterday in Albuquerque to celebrate their step forward. Everyone can agree that this city needs a healthy atmosphere. Over 4 million indigenous voters in the U.S. The word Oklahoma refers to the home of indigenous people. Not only that, but think of the potential partnership that you could facilitate by passing this resolution. Positive change would be in the best interest of economic, legal, and moral social welfare. Let's work together.
Thank you. Tushka Hill.
Good morning, council members. Appreciate your time and consideration on this matter. It's a very important matter to a lot of us. I'm sure you're all aware of social media, Facebook, Twitter, and it is currently a buzz with this issue. There are people all over the place who are in complete favor of this. You know, many of them couldn't be here, as I know that they wanted to, but you know, I'd like to say that I would at least halfway represent them in this issue. A few key points that I'd like to point out is, you know, one of the big arguments on this is that, you know, they don't want to go against Italian Americans. You're worried about offending this group. You know, in Italy, they don't even celebrate Columbus Day. It's not part of their thing. You know, one of the other points I'd like to make is if his discovery had been made today, and with all the atrocities that came across, would people still celebrate this holiday? Would it have a leg to stand on? I mean, I don't know if you guys have done your research, but I have. I know the seriously bad things, and you know, I'd like to mention them, but you know, they're pretty gruesome, you know. And anyway, another point I'd like to make out is it's well documented that Native Americans have been in this continent for millennia. So who really discovered America? You know, everybody knows that, you know, there's different theories. You know, you got the land bridge, you know, you got all these different theories. Native Americans discovered America. And you know, every time there's a new anthropological site being opened up, they push the number back even further. You know, it was 7,000 years, 8,000 years, 10,000 years, 12,000 years, 15,000 years, 20,000 years. We've been here for a very, very long time. Columbus, you know, I'm not saying, you know, strike him from the record books. I'm not saying, you know, blacklist him or anything. I'm just saying we got no reason to celebrate him. You know, he was from Italy, and he was financed by Spain. It had nothing to do with America. He was one of the first ones here who represented a whole nother government, not American government, Spanish government. Yeah. But anyway, I just want to say thank you and very much for your consideration. God bless.
Thank you. Karen Stafford.
Karen Stafford, 1516 Glenbrook Drive. I've been teaching in Oklahoma City for going on 26 years now. When I was a little girl growing up in Houston, we celebrated the explorer who discovered the New World. As I became more educated, I learned that sailing the ocean blue meant 4 voyages to the Caribbean islands by Christopher Colon, which involved considerable carnage, complete with human cargo on the return ships. By the time I graduated from my high school in Texas in 1975, I questioned why the United States honors an historic figure, by definition a slave trader who embodied genocide. 40 years later, I still wonder. We're the new world in this millennium. We no longer need to hold on to symbols that do not reflect who we are as a community or who we would like to be as a society. In these times, granting one day out of our calendar year to acknowledge our Native American population makes sense. Recognizing original peoples and their descendants is a big step toward healing and becoming a more inclusive community. Oklahoma City ranks 4th in the nation for our Native American population. Today, all of you have the opportunity to be leaders of a community that is moving forward and looking ahead by voting yes, supporting Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm appealing to your open hearts and minds, your collective higher consciousness, to vote yes on this resolution. In these times, 2015 is the right time to make this change. I want to thank Mayor Cornett and the City Council for hearing our collective voices today for this significant decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Tashina Goodbear.
Hello, I'm Tashina Goodbear. I live at 1404 Northwest 17th Street. I'm an enrolled member of the Northern Cheyenne Tribe. I'm also Ponca and Choctaw. I currently attend OTRIP, and I plan on being a behavioral psychologist. I'm here in regards to Columbus Day. If I had come into this room, and I liked this room, and I just decided that I would just take it, even though there's people in here, and you would have to listen to me, how would you feel about that? Not only this, but because you guys are so nice to listen to me, I would feel the need to use you to my advantage because of your kindness. If I were to then take you guys and enslave you and then do inhumane punishments to you just because you are different, how would you feel? There's more graphic things than just this. He abused, raped, and tortured those that are like me. Believe it or not, this catapulted into the genocide of my nation, of around 500 nations. For some, it literally led to complete extinction of their kind, just from a man who landed in the Caribbean, not even on this landmass. In entries made by the man claiming to discover North America, he stated several times the friendliness of the indigenous people, clearly noting that he would take advantage of us and abuse their welcoming ways and abuse their kindness to the point of rape, murder, and enslavement. I do have a quotation here of him abusing an indigenous woman in the Caribbean, but I do not want to talk about it because it is so painful to even think about it, because it even happens now. This kind of pain is brought on by the single man who claims to represent a church who recognizes God as a holy man. What kind of true holy man would bring forth such traumas that those who were present to see this could not believe the atrocities that were happening? Another point I had seen online was, it's sad to see children reciting the ships Columbus arrived on, but not the indigenous people he encountered. And before you can think, so what? Not only did the Caribbean people feel this pain, so did those in this room. Not just past tense, but present tense. We'll be here hours if I were to discuss the atrocities of hundreds of years of abuse from those who claim to discover this land. Not only this, but Columbus was not a federal holiday until 1937 at the hands of FDR and the Knights of Columbus, those who were of Italian descent and Roman Catholics. However, the lack of logic holiday began in 1892 as an attempt to be thankful for American life because of Columbus. But how can Americans be thankful for a man who landed in the Caribbean and didn't participate in the bulldozing of hundreds of indigenous tribes in the mainlands? He never set foot on this American soil. So when Nixon rammed another celebratory modification to Columbus Day in 1971, it became a reiteration of massive amounts.
Tashina, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments.
Okay, for the original inhabitants of this continent. And so I just wanted to talk to you guys about what he really did without the graphic imagery. So thank you. Nawish.
Thanks. Garland Pruitt.
Garland Pruitt, 952 North Triple X Road, Choctaw, Oklahoma. I'm in total support of this resolution. They say when we know better, we do better. This is an opportunity for us to fix, for us to change, for us to put some things in place that we, all of us know, as well as those that are not here, that should be addressed. You all have the power. You have the influence. You're in a position to make history. It's amazing that across the nation, people are aware of this needs to happen. People are promoting and suggesting and putting things in place for this to happen. Oklahoma's consider themselves to be the Sooners. Be sooner than later in making this decision. The resolution is long overdue. We want you to reflect upon yourself and you and your family, how you can make history on making the right decision and making the right choice. It's always easy to not make a decision when it has the impact that it's going to have. We support it, we endorse it, we recommend it. It's long overdue, and you need to make the right decision and do the right thing and put forth this effort to correct a tragedy that has not only happened in the past, but is still happening. The proper justice for all, equal inequality is not happening. You're in a position to correct that. We're counting on you to make the right decision and do the right thing and support this ordinance. Thank you.
Amy Bergseth.
Hello, I'm Amy Bergseth. I'm a resident of Norman, but continually supporter and I guess consumer and visitor to Oklahoma City. I'm a grad student in history at University of Oklahoma. And I want to thank you for letting me come and speak to you. I would like you to reconsider this resolution to declare the second Monday of October into Indigenous Peoples Day. I think Oklahoma City should follow the example of the places across the country who are changing and finding that there's a need for not necessarily getting rid of Columbus Day, but making it an Indigenous Peoples Day. I myself am an Oklahoman of European descent, of Polish, Norwegian, and German ancestry. But I would like to urge you and see that we all should see importance in recognizing this day. As Elena mentioned the other day, OU brought together students from Indigenous South America and Central America, and I think it's a really good opportunity for Oklahoma City to recognize its diversity, its Indigenous speakers, and its Hispanic and Spanish-speaking community members in the state as well, and recognize the past and also the importance of their place in the city and the state. The Italian scholar Catherine Anastasia has discussed about what the meaning of Columbus Day has been, and she herself has recognized that the celebration of Columbus has sanitized and silenced the histories of the people of this continent before Italians Americans, and she has recognized that the original adoption of Christopher Columbus as a hero was as part of a social anxiety of Italian Americans to see themselves as ethnically not inclusive of the rest of America. And she urges that it is important for non-natives to recognize, she says, quote, "It's important for non-natives to respect and learn the histories of the injustice of what is now North America and explore your own linkages and departures from this place and this land, and that it's crucial for Italian Americans, and I would like to say maybe as European American or people too who are Oklahomans, that she says, quote, is important to understand Indigenous people who need to keep alive their histories of resistance and survival are not their enemy. They're not the Italian Americans' enemy. Instead, it is time to both turn inward and reflect on the implications of Columbus Day itself and how it came to be, and focus on the future." And so I hope that you guys will reconsider this resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Summer Wesley.
Hello, my name is Summer Wesley. I live at 1610 Hollywood Avenue in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I work on Southeast 66, so I'm very much in contact with the citizenry of OKC, and I conduct business here. Working with the public, I routinely hear members of the indigenous population express that they feel as if they exist on the fringes rather than being interwoven into the tapestry of this community. Yes, OKC hosts Native events like Red Earth, and many indigenous-run enterprises exist throughout the metro, but there is a very distinct feeling in this community of simply coexisting alongside one another, rather than one of inclusion and unity, which I find unfortunate and tragic, and hope to see change in the near future. What this resolution offers is the opportunity to take a proactive step towards reconciliation and unity with the indigenous population. There has been a lot of talk about the tumultuous history, whether it be the atrocities of Columbus, Manifest Destiny, boarding school abuses, stereotypes, or any other current issue in Indian country. We don't speak of these things in order to shame you or in an attempt to cause guilt for circumstances that were not within your control. We do so by way of explanation for the current state of relations. After all, history is never solely relegated to the past. It continually forms the present, just as your vote today will formulate the future. As we request, all that we're requesting is that you accept our offer to join with the indigenous community to build an even stronger legacy in the years to come. As the capital city of our state, you are an example to all others. So make no mistake, there are no neutral positions on issues like this. For example, approving the measure but amending it to fall on another arbitrary day carries not only the implicit rejection of a no, but also the patronizing message that this governing body knows more about what our community needs than those who are a part of it. Dialogue has occurred over the past month, and compromises have actualized. Now it's time to take a stand. It's time to change the second Monday in October from one that celebrates crimes against humanity, even if only implicitly endorsed through your silent complicity, to one of unity and reconciliation. The world is watching, and your decision today will let them know what Oklahoma City stands for. I sincerely hope that it is for progress, inclusivity, and a unified tomorrow, and that you will demonstrate this by voting yes on the proposed resolution. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Sally. Deborah Batiste Tomasi.
Deborah Batiste Tomasi, 1704 Mooney Drive, Durant, Oklahoma. Formerly of Oklahoma City, formerly of the PARB Post Adjudicated Review Board of the Courts for ICWA, formerly of Dewey Street and 15th. And thank you, Mayor Cornett, City Manager, and the Councilor Barrister, Councilor Jordan, and the rest of the ward representatives. And I also would like to just say thank you, Councilman White. I was a high school all-state band performing our concert in the Skirvin Hotel. So that brought a lot of joy to my heart. And that's what I hope and think and respect, that all of you will take into consideration these comments. A little city like Anadarko, Oklahoma, as small as it is, Mayor, 49%, the statistics, 49% Indigenous and Native American. Riverside Indian School, which is there, the last Bureau of Indian Affairs and Government boarding school financed in our state, progressing, looking beautiful. 74 Native American tribes represented from all across the 50 states and reservations. Back when I worked at Oklahoma City Indian Clinic here in the city, I noticed, Mayor, the great things that you and this council have done for Oklahoma City. You continue to do great things, and setting a role model and example is definitely one of them. This is a hard decision probably, to put it off, not put it off, but to reconsider. And I look at that you had from your heart. When I walked into this room, behind that screen, I saw a pipe on our seal of the city of Oklahoma City. And I thought, oh good, because I knew what that meant culturally. I knew that meant that nothing but honesty and truth could prevail in this room. That's what that would represent in my culture as a Choctaw Chickasaw. 29, 30 seconds is what the BIA say I have. 15, 16 is what my family says I have, like the young lady that talked about living in two worlds. But what I say about this particular day, this particular decision, is that I am a fifth generation survivor of the 1830s Trail of Tears coming to this land, which formerly was called IT, Indian Territory. Indian Territory, and I respect our relatives and neighbors and everyone that did come here and created the state, the Sooner State, because it's progressed, and we continue to progress and continue to grow. This decision is not an easy decision for you, I'm sure. Like my third grade teacher, when all of this history came out about the third grade, she called me and said, Debbie Batiste, would you stay in for recess? I was embarrassed, and I almost ashamed, but I did what she said because she was the authority. And I sat down and I said, Miss Hughes, she said, Debbie, what do you think about white people? What do you think about the European people? And I thought, oh, like my mother, I must have popped off during American history and said something made me have to stay in for recess. I said, Miss Hughes, I think it's how you treat me. I can't help what my ancestors did to your people. I can't help what your ancestors did to my people. I think what really matters today is how you treat me and how I treat you. And she said, Debbie, go to recess. That was a relief. I hope today is going to be a relief, Mayor, and thank all of you very much for our time.
Thank you. Carolyn Chowning.
Hi, I'm speaking today in my capacity as board president for the Oklahoma Coalition for Reproductive Justice, which operates in solidarity with individuals and groups supporting this resolution to recognize yesterday's federal holiday locally as Indigenous Peoples Day. The Oklahoma Coalition for Reproductive Justice bases our work in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Yesterday's holiday is a direct celebration of colonialism and genocide. Discussion of Christopher Columbus cannot be separated from the unbroken, continued history of genocide in this country and in this place. Violence against women, boarding schools, forced sterilization, violations of the Indian Child Welfare Act, and failure of the United States to uphold treaties by providing adequate health services. These are current, these are contemporary, these are concerns that affect Oklahoman families. This is reproductive oppression and exists in the context of ongoing conquest. Jacqueline Aktuka in 2005 said sexual assault rates and violence against Native women did not just drop from the sky. They are a process of history. We urge you to vote for Indigenous Peoples Day, and in addition to my prepared organizational statement, I'd like to share a personal story. Because our personal discomfort in acknowledging genocide is not a sufficient reason to refuse to act. I live in Southside Oklahoma City in Ward 4, and I appreciate your leadership, but I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, immensely proud of our roots in history. For example, my first job was working as a historical interpreter at the Wright Brothers Bicycle Shop and Small Press, but it wasn't until later that I learned that Southern Ohio was also the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. To paraphrase Maya Angelou, when we know better, we can do better, and often we choose not to, and this is the case with Columbus Day. To not recognize the history of our places is to do violence, not only towards our ancestors and peoples living in the past. To not recognize the history of our places is to perpetuate the past's violence in the present, to do violence against ourselves and our neighbors, to educate our children in hatred, white supremacy, and colonialism. My mother immigrated with her parents following World War II, and I'm sharing this because I believe there's more than one of you resistant to this resolution that's based on avoiding your personal culpability in genocide. My mother was raised to prioritize silence over truth, secrecy over honesty, and not acknowledging what came before us. One of my great-grandfathers was a leader in the organization of Ukrainian nationalists, and my mother's father fought in World War II as part of the Ukrainian Waffen-SS in the Nazi army, the 1st Galician Division. So there is a motivation to protect or to hide not only personal culpability for war crimes, but complicity in nationalist genocide, and this is the case with Columbus Day. Today, my sister and I try to share stories of Ukrainian involvement in World War II and the invasion of Poland and countless massacres and pogroms, because these systematic abuses of human rights are not distant, they are not vague, and they are well documented. Again, this is the case with Columbus Day. The systematic human rights abuses that continue in our unbroken history of genocide as part of the legacy of Christopher Columbus are not distant, they are not vague, and they are well documented and painfully overdue for Oklahoma to acknowledge. Thanks.
Thank you. Kimberly Stratum Francisco.
Good morning. I'm Kimberly Statham Francisco, 1313 Northeast 50th. I appreciate your time, Mayor Cornett, my councilperson, John Pettis, and my good friend, Meg Salyer. I'm here today absolutely in support of this particular resolution. I am a lifelong native of Oklahoma City, born and reared here, as my mother was. My father was born on a reservation not too far from El Reno, Oklahoma, and family in Lima, Oklahoma. We have rich history, lots of diversity, and I stand before you not only for myself, but for my children, but most importantly for my granddaughter, Elliot Ophelia. It is imperative that we move forward as our city, as our state, and of all places here in this great state of Oklahoma and what it represents on the larger scale, what this state was identified long before it was a state as Indian territory, with indigenous folk being moved here, being displaced here, and then eventually us once again breaking treaties, breaking promises, and opening this land. And again, you know, the whole idea of discovering, of founding, and determining that even on this small patch of land known as Indian Territory, someone I'm sure decided, oh, there must be oil in them there hills, so let us go once again and take this. We don't have to read far, we don't have to dig very far at all to fully comprehend the comprehensive nature of what was going on with Christopher Columbus. If you haven't had opportunity to read Howard Zinn's A People's History, I would strongly encourage you to do so, and you don't have to go far. First chapter, Columbus, the Indians, and Human Progress. I'd like to just share with you very quickly from his log, from the log of Christopher Columbus, as he landed only a quarter, 1/4 of the way where he was intending to go. He was looking for gold, he was looking for silk, he was looking for Asia. 1/4 of the way he landed in what is now known as the Bahamas, met by indigenous people. And in his own words, they brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for the glass beads and hawk's bells. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were well built, with good bodies and handsome features. They do not bear arms and do not know them, for I showed them a sword. They took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. Their spears are made of cane. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. The author of this particular book, Howard Zinn, expresses what many of us know on our personal journeys and the histories that we learned or the histories that we didn't learn, the things our teachers never taught us. He speaks of how history being whitewashed and not fully understanding how people of color were presented and then they were invisible. There were Indians and then there were none. There were black folks, there was slavery, they were free, and then there were none. It was a white man's history. I'm going to wrap it up right now. But here, from first grade to graduate school, I was given no inkling that the landing of Christopher Columbus in the New World initiated a genocide in which the indigenous population of Hispaniola was annihilated, or that this was just the first stage of many genocides. Louisiana Purchase, Florida Purchase, Mexican cessation. I encourage you, I urge you, I implore you, today, if not today, when? Today. Let's do this. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Adams Cornell.
Good morning, just barely, council members. Albuquerque, Anadarko, Portland.
Sarah, I need your name and address.
Sarah Adams Cornell, 2833 Northwest 43rd Street, Oklahoma City. Albuquerque, Anadarko, Portland, St. Paul, Olympia, Multnomah County, Traverse City, Sandoval County, Lawrence, Alpena, Bexar County, the Choctaw Nation, the Muskogee Creek Nation, the University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma City University. These are just a few in the past weeks. How many more cities do we have to watch lap us before we decide it's time to honor Native people? Chief Gary Batten of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma asked me to read this on his behalf. To whom it may concern, the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma has proclaimed the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day to educate and promote the significance of the contributions made by the Choctaw people to the United States of America and the state of Oklahoma. On behalf of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, I would like to encourage the City Council of Oklahoma City to join us in recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday in October. We have many letters like this from tribes and non-native organizations, all which have sent these to your offices as well and made many phone calls to your offices. Many of these people are here today to show you that it's more than just Native community asking for this change. Don't misunderstand the impact of Indigenous Peoples Day. It's not just to honor Indigenous people. Christopher Columbus and his legacy are painful for Native people. It is painful. And it is that very reason why the second Monday in October is poignant. We don't want another day chosen for us by you, nor do we want to be treated like children who don't know what's best for them. We are an intelligent, resilient people, and we know what's best for us. When a community of color comes to you as a united group with a request, you must listen and understand that we know what's best for us. Part of the problem is that this city council doesn't much look like Oklahoma City. So put yourselves in our shoes and look at the city through our eyes, because you don't have that learned experience of being in our shoes. I've watched you vote within seconds to allocate millions of dollars, and it takes you 2 sessions to bring us justice that costs the city nothing. This is a matter of justice. It isn't difficult. This is easy. And telling us that the city council doesn't make holidays feels like a cop-out to me. You make proclamations to honor people and organizations all the time. If it needs to be a proclamation, let's make it a proclamation. But don't change the date to get us off your agenda. This issue has united Native people like never before in our city. We are organizing. We are getting registered to vote, and we will remember the way that we have been treated in your chambers. I know the citizens of Oklahoma City reached out to your office in a big way. These citizens should set the agenda and have spoken loud and clear. Honor the voice of your community and your Native American people. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Alicia Anzawa. Okay. Jackie Holder.
Good morning. My name's Jacqueline Holder, and I'm a resident of Oklahoma City. I reside at 4401 Northwest 39th Street. I'd like to, first of all, thank you for your time. I am a lifetime resident of Oklahoma City. I am a homegrown product of Oklahoma City Public Schools, a graduate of Northwest Classen High School, and also a graduate of Oklahoma City University. I am a enrolled member of the Comanche Nation of Oklahoma, and I am currently the chairperson for the Parent Advisory Committee for Native American Student Services. I represent over 2,000 plus students in 86 tribes here in Oklahoma City Public School District. We, as a committee, are endorsing Indigenous Peoples Day. We would ask the City Council to please adopt this day. In my research, I have come across, and my predecessors have done so well in naming the atrocities that are related to Columbus Day, the statistics of all the issues that are plaguing Indian country. So I won't go so much into that. I would like to say that the constant use of Native American imagery, such as mascots and Halloween costumes, and even as tourist attractions, and even Columbus Day parades and celebrations, deplete the self-esteem of Native people, especially our young people. We need to acknowledge our struggle that has been 500 plus years now of oppression, and we are still here, and we're thriving, and we have governments that do not even recognize Columbus Day. In our governments surrounding this area, we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. And continuously undermining the contribution of our people undermines the self-esteem and the contribution of Native people. And our young Native people are suffering. We have some of the lowest graduation rates. We have addiction, we have suicide, we have all of these issues that I believe as a social worker contribute directly from constant demeaning of Native self-imagery. I would like everyone to know that these young people who believe that they don't matter grow up to be adult people who believe they don't matter. And some of them are here in this room, and we're asking you for our children to please vote for Indigenous Peoples Day. I would like to say in closing that there are two federal holidays that are honoring specific people. One we are here for, and the second is Martin Luther King Day. One is the founding father of the civil rights movement. One spoke for love and tolerance and equality for all people. The other is the founding father of the Indigenous Holocaust. And he was a racist, and he was a murderer, and he was a slave trader. And we hope that throughout today and the things that you've heard from all different races of people, from all different areas and
Jackie,
arenas.
you need to wrap it up.
In all different areas and arenas, that you would consider adopting Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you. Ura.
Bella Cornell.
Bella Cornell, 2833 Northwest 43rd Street. Halito, Sahochofo, Bella Ayukli Cornell, Chatasia. Hello, everyone. My name is Bella Cornell, and I am Choctaw. I'm 14 years old. I'm the daughter of an activist in residence, and I myself am an inspiring activist. I am also the OKCPS Native American Student Services student representative. Ladies and gentlemen, I come before you today in support of Indigenous Peoples Day. I ask that you, too, be in support of this holiday. The reason is this: we should not honor a man who raped, enslaved, tortured, and murdered thousands of Indigenous people. Ask yourselves this: would I honor a man who committed all of these crimes with a holiday? To put it differently, would you honor Hitler with a holiday? Absolutely not. So why? Why would you honor Columbus with a holiday? It is literally the same thing. Indigenous people do take this to be an offensive holiday. It's a holiday full of racism. For the Native community, we see it that way. By supporting Indigenous Peoples Day, you won't just be supporting a step towards something greater and better, but also the betterment and education of our communities. You should always be ready to change for the better. I ask you, as council members, to help our voices be heard and to not let us go unseen or unheard. You are the voices and the role models for Oklahoma City. It is your job and duty to make sure you really are ready to change. Please honor us as Indigenous people, our history, and change the holiday. Yakoki, thank you for your time.
D.O. Smalling.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having this legitimate debate. And my name is D.G. Smalling. I live on 518 Northwest 12th Street here in Oklahoma City, longtime residents. After I came back to the United States from working in the Balkans during the conflicts there, I made residence here because I had family connections. I came here because of diversity. I came here because I enjoyed the space that was made for the South Vietnamese. I enjoyed the markets. I enjoyed knowing that there was representation for them, that they were embraced here, that their holidays were valued, that districts and spaces were made for them. And so it's very funny that being a Choctaw member, we have to debate this point. We have to talk about these things. The fact that we're having to talk about it means that there are historical schisms, and as people, responsibility that we vote for and that we respect and people that I admire, you know, it falls on you. The fact that we're fleshing this out still speaks to what our nation has a process of perfecting this union, making this union more complete. Now, you've heard over and over again about the character and nature of this man, and the value of this sort of resolution, the value of proposing this isn't for me, it isn't for you, it's for that little infant back there who doesn't have to be raised with that memory, with that baggage. It is to understand that when we put someone in front of our children on a holiday, we are saying, be like this person. Now, my parents are missionaries. My parents work on sex trafficking issues and have for 15 years. The mind and conscience of such a man, and I have encountered these people in the Balkans, is so malevolent that to validate such a man questions the validator. There is no question. There is no option. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're, from our perspective, a traditionalist, whether you're agnostic, an atheist, such a person is an anathema and should be rejected. And for that, I wish that you would give this time to consider and to act upon it, because I don't believe that there is an option. It's like what Francis Schaeffer said, you know, how then shall we live? Well, we're fleshing that out right now. We're fleshing it out, and we would ask that you would let us live with respect, mutual respect, to perfect this union of what is not only the United States, not only Oklahoma, but Oklahoma City. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Johnny J. 2309 Northwest 38th, Lawton, Oklahoma. Today you are being presented a unique opportunity to create a new legacy, not just for the city, not just for the state, but for this country. In 2010, Dr. Celsa, who is an Italian-American historian, asserted that in 1892, when Benjamin Harris, our president at the time, made this a national holiday, which was 400 years after the exploration of Columbus. It was done specifically to bring Native Americans, Italian Americans, and others together. However, you cannot bring people together or reconcile past wrongs by celebrating a man responsible for the rape, enslavement, and genocide of any people. Now, you can look this up because Columbus Day was instituted only 2 years after Wounded Knee, and a year after the largest lynching in U.S. history, which was that of Italians in 1891. So it wasn't really a day to celebrate Italian-American history. It was a day to pacify racial tensions that existed against Italian-American people at the time. But Indigenous Peoples Day can be a day that can truly unify us all. It does not have to be exclusively Native, but a celebration of the people and cultures indigenous to homelands outside of the U.S. It can be a day that could bring us all together to celebrate, appreciate, and educate each other about who we are as human beings. It is a day that could easily transition into the Italian American Heritage Month, that then transitions into Native American History Month. More importantly, it is a day that does not have to hold the expectation of any people to be grateful or to celebrate the erasure of their history, the marginalization of their genocide, and the man responsible for the beginning of that genocide. So I implore you to take this opportunity to create a new legacy for our country, one in which we can be truly unified and celebrate each other for who we are, not as Indigenous people, not just as Italian Americans or Irish Americans, but as human beings. So thank you very much.
Bunky Echo Hawk.
Noah, my name is Bunky Echo Hawk, 2018, Pawnee, Oklahoma. Greetings, Mayor, council members. Appreciate the opportunity to speak here. Most importantly, I am the daddy of the baby in the back of the room that was mentioned moments ago. Kind of put me on a spot, put a lump in my throat, to have my son pointed out in that way. I have volumes of things that I could recite to you guys. But one thing that really struck me is the fact that when Columbus Day was first enacted in the late 1890s, that was a time before we were even United States citizens, before we had the right to vote, before we had a seat at the table or were able to stand at a podium like this. And I just wanted to stress that, because now that's what we want, is a seat at the table. We want the opportunity to have our voice considered on an equal basis. And it's about being included. It's inclusive. The holiday that we are proposing, this Indigenous Peoples Day, it is about being inclusive. It's about welcoming our neighbors into our homes, into our culture, having a seat at our table to feed them, a seat at on the outskirts of our arbor when we have our dances, and so on and so forth. And the date is very important. We've all heard what's becoming more and more as rhetoric, the true history of Columbus. And to me, it's not about erasing Columbus. It's not about putting Columbus away. It's about building upon that. It's about including Columbus, his legacy, the truth about him, but building upon that and including us and having a seat at this table. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anthony Williamson.
Greetings, Halito. I'm so glad to be here today.
Need your name and address for the record, Anthony.
My name is Anthony Williamson, 410 East Kentucky, Anadarko, Oklahoma. I'm so glad to be here today. I want to thank you guys for allowing us to speak today. Thank for everybody that's here to come in support of this day. I just want to say the name that was given to me is Anthony Williamson, but my name that I go by is Tongia Day. That means man standing in water. Today I stand in waters of truth. And I pray that these rivers of truth that these people have spoken will flow from this place across the great state of Oklahoma. In this place, if you haven't noticed, there are 28 Indian heads with 28 war bonnets on your light fixtures. And today I ask you, do you honor us, or are we simply a decoration? We're here today because of what Columbus means to us. It's a horrible thing that took place. And you heard a lot of the accounts. And it hasn't even been said, really, what took place. On April the 19th, 1995, a bomb exploded at the Murrah Building. A horrible terrorist act occurred. One that affected every one of us. I was only blocks away when I saw the smoke rise and I felt the blast that took place. But because of that, we all joined together. Because of all that, because of what took place, it brought us together as one voice, one mind, one fire. And we determined that day that we would join hands together and stand up and rise up together and dare the world to knock us down. And I ask you today, I would never ask that day to be called Timothy McVeigh Day. Neither should the day, October of every year, be called Columbus Day. I move that this city council join with us, join hands with us, join together. Let's rise up together. Let's stand together. Let's help one another like we know how to do. Regardless of race, creed, let's join together and let's tell the world what's right. Thank you very much.
Priya Desai. Okay. Jasha Echo Hawk.
No, Council, my name is Jasha Lyons Echohawk. I live at 2018 Timberlane in Pawnee, Oklahoma. I'm enrolled Seminole Creek, but I'm also Pawnee, Omaha, and Iowa. The definition of indigenous is produced, growing, living, or occurring naturally in a particular region or environment. To use the term indigenous is simply to better state the original inhabitants of this country. Indigenous is more inclusive than American Indian or Native American, as there are 370 million indigenous people, or 5,000 different groups or nations of indigenous people worldwide. That's as many as 4,000 still speaking their indigenous languages. 39 federally recognized nations reside in Oklahoma, making it the second most populous state in the Union for indigenous residents. Of these 39 nations, 36,572 indigenous people reside in Oklahoma City, making it the fourth city in the U.S. with the most indigenous residents. Knowing these numbers, it is clear that providing a limited view of these unique and varied people through Red Earth powwow and exhibition dancing is dismally narrow. Knowing these numbers, it is clear that a major city like Oklahoma City offering one pan-Indian event to the community, to the visiting public, is selling itself short. Knowing these numbers, will Oklahoma City not see the value in accepting this resolution as an opportunity to originate and create one of the biggest confluences of cultural celebration in the heart of Indian Territory? We have an opportunity, Oklahoma City, to build a brand new event that honors and celebrates Indigenous people through art like Bunky Echohawk and Shane Goshorn, through film like Sterling Harjo and Stephen Paul Judd, through fashion like Joseph Koshaway and Shawnee Designs, through sport like Sam Bradford, who was an Oklahoma City resident. Indigenous people are more than powwows. They are more than just dance. Indigenous people are like you, council members. They are business owners, doctors, entertainers, filmmakers, Nike consultants, professional athletes, and all these folks I just named are Indigenous and Oklahoman. Indigenous people need to be celebrated and can be honored through a festival that can rival Santa Fe's Indian Art Market or Albuquerque's Gathering of Nations, which both nonprofit organizations have been able to bring in $20 million a day for their respective host cities, and as many as 150,000 visitors from around the world. And the day does matter. The day is sensitive. The resolution is meant to be time-specific because we, Oklahoma City, have to acknowledge some things that make us uncomfortable, that make us want to turn away and perhaps shuffle off. These things we have brought up are not any more easy to share than it is for you to hear them. But they have to be known so we don't make the same mistakes, so we can have a fresh, full future. And I'm happy to be here, to stand before you, Oklahoma City Council, to be able to share. I am here, a contemporary person, the product of a lineage of ancestors who fought to be here. I am the 2% that still remains, and that needs to be acknowledged because it is beautiful, and that beauty can be manifested into an incredible hallmark for this great city. Please allow us our Indigenous Peoples Day as requested. Please allow us to give back to this city, this community, because as much as this day is for us, it is for you as well. Please vote yes. Mado.
Gay Pasley. Samantha Crane.
Halito, my name is Samantha Crane, 902 North University. As a professional musician, I travel all over this world and this country. Alaska, California, New Mexico, Arizona. I've met lots of people in indigenous tribes and have formed kinships with them. I've noticed and experienced that many of these places are making great strides in celebrating, recognizing the continued culture of tribes of people that have for 500 years been marginalized and forgotten while residing on the very land that their ancestors inhabited long before colonization. As you're most likely aware already, Oklahoma has the second most proportional percentage population of Native Americans in the US, as well as the second most actual individual population of Native Americans in the US. So what I'm asking and what everyone that's come up here is asking is not representative of a small constituency. We're talking about 500,000 people within these state borders and a large percentage of the people that reside in this city as well. So what we're asking is the second Monday of October be recognized as Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. It'd be a truer representation of the actual history of this state and the land on which the city stands. We have the name of the state is Oklahoma. It comes from the Choctaw words Okla and Huma, meaning red people. The state was Indian territory long before the Choctaws came here and other tribes through the Trail of Tears. There's evidence that the Wichitas, the Caddo, they've been here for thousands of years. So thirdly, there's a matter of my own experience. Being a musician, I go to all these music festivals and I endure on it constantly cultural appropriation that goes on at these events. And I think a lot of this is just, it's ignorance on the original people that are from this country. And I think a huge thing here, if we could change this Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, that's going to seep into the education of the kids that are coming up in this country. It's going to make more sense to them why these are sensitive issues, why using these images aren't appropriate and are actually very harmful. So anyways, I just think Indigenous Peoples Day, it's more accurate for where this state stands than celebrating a man that has a history of genocide and assimilation. I think it's more important to celebrate a history of diversity and freedom and culture. So as an active resident and artistic representative of this state and its people, this is what I'm asking you with fervor and with reason. I think it just makes sense.
As you all know, our meetings are recorded, and when the meeting starts to push 4 hours, we have to change out the recording device. So I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess. McCrae?
Hi, my name's Ashley McCrae, 1528 Elk Circle. I am a PhD student at the University of Oklahoma. I'm a historian, and I am an enrolled tribal member of the Absentee Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma. Greetings, Council and Mayor. I am standing here before you today urging you to act honorably by passing the resolution to recognize the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day. As one of the authors behind the OU resolution, I am filled with joy and goodwill because our leaders made the choice to listen to its Indigenous community by celebrating Indigenous knowledge, culture, and contributions. Yesterday's celebration is already paving the way for collaboration, as well as a general sense of belonging for the indigenous communities. We are no longer in the margins. There is no division, in fact, quite the opposite. There is only joy, laughter, happiness, and dancing, singing, eating, sharing, and stories. Non-Indigenous peoples joined with us in dancing and stickball games. I was greeted by many who thanked us for including them. Yesterday, our community was reminded that we are a vital component of the social fabric at OU. Oklahoma is home to 39 federally recognized tribes. Oklahoma City boasts one of the highest populations of Native residents in the nation. What we are asking for here today is by no means controversial or divisive. We aren't asking the community to dwell on the wrongs of the past. We are instead asking you to be a part of us, picking up and moving forward together. Seattle, Portland, Anadarko, Albuquerque, and cities all over the nation are part of this large and collective movement. As my brother Tushka said back there, this is all over social media. Everybody is watching. Today, all eyes are on Oklahoma, watching to see whether the Oklahoma City Council, you, will be able to do the right thing by passing this resolution. I implore you all to be brave and to listen to the actual Native bodies, the community who have now stood in front of you 3 times, telling you what we need. If you fear the potential of folks coming back in and demanding you reinstall Columbus Day on the second Monday of every October, I assure you, I guarantee you, there is no logical or conscionable argument or defense for celebrating a person responsible for the transatlantic slave trade, the genocide of people, the trafficking and sexual exploitation of young children, or a person who never even stepped foot on this continent. Columbus does not do justice to the Italian-American community. Everybody can do better. Please know the nation is watching, and the decision you make here today sends a clear and loud message regarding your desire and intention to include Indigenous peoples in the fabric of Oklahoma City. I pray you keep our words in mind as you vote on this today. But it doesn't matter if you feel like you are ready or not. The time is now. The time is today. Niawe.
David Wilson.
Reverend Dr. David Wilson, 115 Northwest 20th. Sisters and brothers, as I look across this room and in the back, and as I came in, I would dare to guess there's about 30 tribes represented in this room. And although our tribes are so different, the one thing we do have in common is our spirituality as Native American people. I currently serve as the conference superintendent of the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference of United Methodist Church. About 87 Indian Methodist churches across Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, and now Missouri. 4 of those churches are located in the Oklahoma City area. Our existence began long before the tribes. Our tribes were removed to Indian territory. Before our removal, Cherokees, Choctaws, Creeks, Muskogee Creeks were visited by Methodist evangelists who converted many of our people to Christianity and to Methodists. And so at that time, our people began doing what Methodists do. We began to create churches in those home states. It'd be about 2 years later that the government would forcibly remove all of our people to Indian territory. But one of the very first things those men and women did, facing death, starvation, persecution along that journey, when they arrived in Indian territory, was to create Methodist churches. So if you travel in the far southeastern part of the state, in northeast Oklahoma, you will see Methodist churches that have been in existence for over 180 years. We indeed, as I remind my sisters and brothers across the Oklahoma Conference, that we are the mother church of Methodism for the state of Oklahoma. So we're a people proud of our spiritual heritage, our lives as ceremonial and Christian people that contribute greatly not just to this state, but to Oklahoma City. It is the spirituality of our people that has carried our ancestors and us to the darkest moments of our lives. It is also our spirituality that's allowed us to offer forgiveness for the past sins of the world and to do what we're doing today to move ahead to a brighter future. As I looked across this room today, all of us gathered from all nations, all places. I'm reminded what a diverse and beautiful tapestry, spectacular people of God's beauty, a small reminder how beautiful God must be. God's creativity that made this world what it is today. People created in the image of God. As a pastor, I have to throw in the scripture, 1 Corinthians chapter 12. The Apostle Paul, who was attempting to work on unity, said, so that there should be no division in the body, but its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Oklahoman and Cherokee author Bernard Strickland writes, in the last chapter of his book, Indians in Oklahoma, Sisters and Brothers, published in 1980, listen to these words. And he says, how can we learn what the Indian has to offer? We can begin by appreciating the philosophy, religion, art, literature, music, and dance of the Native Americans. But the basic question is, when will we recognize Oklahoma's Indian religions, philosophy, literature, and a large body of Native painting, poetry, and prose? The story of the Indian is the literature of America. It is not trite to say that the Indian sings the songs of the forest, of our birds, of our souls. For his world is our world. He is America, and he is American. Thank you, sisters and brothers, for your time, and I urge your vote for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. David Bearshield. Maddie Haybeck.
Sio Nigada. I'm Maddie Haybeck. I live at 1111 Oak Tree Avenue in Norman, Oklahoma. I am a graduate student at the University of Oklahoma studying political and intercultural communication. I also intern here in Oklahoma City at the Capitol, as well as I'm a teaching assistant for my department. I wanted to come speak to you today and encourage you to pass this resolution. Indigenous Peoples Day means a great deal to the community, as I'm sure you've seen from everybody speaking today. We're all very passionate about it, and we recognize how important it is for our future and for our youth and for our community. I'm also the president of the Native American sorority at OU, so I'm speaking on their behalf. Let's see. So just to start off with some history, let's be honest, Columbus was lost, right? And he was wrong. I'm not an Indian. I'm indigenous. I'm Chalagi. He was a mass murderer, and as you've heard, he committed countless unspeakable atrocities. When you allow this kind of a person to be celebrated, what kind of message does that send to our community? What kind of message does that send to our children? Our communities, as mentioned before, suffer from high rates of addiction, from suicide, from sexual assault. We have the highest rate of sexual assault for our women in any minority community in the United States. It's 1 in 3. That is absolutely unfathomable. So if you allow Columbus Day to continue to be a holiday rather than replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day, what kind of message does that send? We should be supporting these communities rather than to allow them to be continually torn down. And by rejecting this, symbolically, that's what you're doing. We need to be built up. What do you have to lose from this? You have everything to gain. You're not just showing support and solidarity for the Native community, but you're also showing support and solidarity for any historically oppressed community. You're showing that you are listening and that you care about your constituents' wants and needs. And I think that is so important as a public official to really send that message and mean it to your community. That's who you represent. We are who you represent. If you say no, we won't quit. And I'm sure you know this being the third time we've come to you. We are a strong and resilient people. And as you can see, this issue is very close to our hearts. Also, I just want to say that it's inevitable for Indigenous Peoples Day to become a federal holiday. This is just the first wave. This is the beginning. You've seen how many towns, cities, everywhere, there's universities, and there's a big wave for Indigenous Peoples Day being recognized. You could be a leader. Be in that first wave. Don't be shamed into it later. Just start now and make a symbolic effort to create a change for the community. It's so important with the high population of Native peoples in our state and in this city that we recognize them and show them their importance, not only just for our history, but for our future. It's an opportunity for us to heal historical trauma together, and it'll resonate not only through this city, but through the state and the nation as well. I urge you to be a leader and to create a brighter future for our Indigenous populations and the community together as a whole. Wado.
Shirley Eisenberg.
Hello, my name is Charles Eisenberger. I live at 14512 Sileno Way in Oklahoma City, right there in Tornado Alley. I'm very proud to be here to be able to speak. I knew I was coming, but my friend signed me up, so I'm glad she did. I'm Kiowa, Potawatomi, and German, hence the name Eisenberger, but I come from the Silverhorn families and the Dumbo families. Silverhorn and Dumbo. Dumbo translates to flute in the Kiowa language. I just recently graduated from OU. I'm 45 years old. I went back to school after 23 years, and I had some brain cells left enough to graduate from OU. So yesterday I was at the university, and I saw something really beautiful. I've been on the road for about 4 months after graduating. I just wanted to travel. So I got back 3 in the morning the day before yesterday, and I didn't know about what was going on at OU. But when I got there, I started to realize the significance of the day. And I've always been a firm believer in acknowledging Indigenous people. I would like to say that, atrocities were committed. A lot of people brought that up today. We can't change that, but what we can do is show the world that is watching all of us today that we do have hearts in Oklahoma. We do care about what we represent to our community, to the tribes, to our people, to our children, to our grandchildren, to our people that aren't even born yet. They'll look at this day, and I'll be able to look back at this day and know that I was here with all of you in this room, and we did something very beautiful today for our human race. I thank you for your time. You guys have a beautiful day. Aho.
Michael Washington.
Yes, that's me. Thank you so much, sir. Greetings to all of you and to your illustrious guests out here. Today, we are speaking about an Indigenous Day, possibly for you great people who deserve to be recognized for the contributions you've made to make humanity what it is today. Secondly, even before I get so deeply into that situation, let me say, first of all, how can a man named Columbus discover America when some people, your people, were already here? You can't possibly discover something now. You have to discover to be the first one present, as far as my understanding of the matter is concerned. As a matter of fact, too, he wasn't even the second person to discover outside the indigenous people. Matter of fact, there was a little black guy at the top of the scope that said, hey, master, go this way. A lot of people don't know about that, do they? I don't believe this city council is going to pass anything for you because they don't care about you. Straight up. If they cared about you, conditions in our communities would be far greater than they are today. We have to realize one thing, too, my good, great people, indigenous people. Your life matters, despite what these people think. They don't care about your condition. They don't care about your economic arrangements. All they care about is passing something for the powers that be who run this great state of Oklahoma. When the Europeans came to America and stole from you, killed your people, stole your land, deprived your children of education, they were telling you what they thought about you. As a matter of fact, they stole your name, your history, your language, your culture, and everything that stood about you. Well, today we're not going to allow that history to be hidden any longer. And I say to you, this city council, prove me, Michael Washington, wrong, and I will stand up greatly as a man of my word with all these witnesses and say, praise God, these people did what was good. But I don't think I'm going to believe that. Why? Because the powers that be want you to keep things as they are. Why not give these people something of pride and belief in themselves? In knowing it would make me feel great that I can stand up and say, hey, these people recognize an Indigenous Day for me. That means that I'm great, I'm important, that I can make a difference in life, in society. As a matter of fact, too, a lot of you probably had ancestors who were raised by indigenous people, who otherwise would have been lost, as they say, in the sauce. All praise is due to God. So I say to you again, I represent not only the African-American community, because we have a diverse group of people there, but I represent humanity. And as a matter of fact, people might see Michael Washington, when he walks through that door, I don't sidewind. I don't play. And I don't ride with anybody that I don't believe is real. As a matter of fact, once again, I respect you, esteemed council members. But I will not side and ride with you if you're injustice. And I don't care if you're outside, inside, on top of a roof. If God is for you, he's more than the whole world is against you. So I'm saying to y'all today, give these great people the right that their children can stand and say, Mom and Daddy, what does indigenous people mean to me? Why do they recognize for me? Huh?
Michael, that's your time's up.
My time's up. Oh, my God, I was just getting started. Thank you.
We had a couple of other pieces of paper, looked like they were duplicates of people that had already spoken. Is there anyone who wanted to speak and hasn't had a chance yet? Yes. Yes, come on forward. Did you want to speak on this matter?
Oh, you want people speaking on?
Yeah, no, it needs to be on this matter at this point. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have been more clear. Okay, Pete?
Well, I'm going to move the resolution as it exists, but I'm going to make a couple of comments before I do that. It is obvious to me that this is not going to be, it would not be a satisfactory solution to the people that are supporting this resolution if the date is changed. It seems to me that one of the things that's been made very clear is the insult that the indigenous people of this country feel about this date being named in honor of Columbus. And I don't think we can escape that. I've been approached with the idea that we change the date, and after listening to people today, I don't believe any of the people that spoke would be willing to change the date, and I understand that. I do understand it. I've had contacts with other people, and one of the big comments was that this is an effort to revise history. Well, it seems to me this is just the opposite of that. This is an effort to bring history back in line with what really happened. You know, there have been a lot of things over the last several years where history has been revised. A number of the so-called massacres or battles or whatever you want to refer to them, you know, if George Custer's wife had not have been so adamant about trying to make him a hero, we would have really known what happened at Little Bighorn and what happened at Sandy Creek and what happened at all these other places in western Oklahoma in the Black Kettle situation. We would have known that 100 years ago. But she was a great PR person and did the same thing. I believe the Italian Americans were great PR people for Columbus. I think if we were talking about the second Monday in October being Italian American Day, the date wouldn't make any difference to indigenous people. But they just picked the wrong guy, in my opinion. We've had things happen in Oklahoma City over the last, say, 50 years. You know, Oklahoma City named 3 schools after Confederate generals. Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis School in Oklahoma City is closed now, and my guess is if the school board built another school in that area, they'd find another name for it. And it's because the lost cause argument that followed the Civil War has now been thrown out. People realize now that the Civil War was about slavery, and we no longer come up with all kinds of obtuse arguments to try to say that it wasn't about that. And so I think the date is going to be important. And if I could ask just one spokesperson to come back before and state whether or not, from your standpoint, you would rather see the resolution go down than have the date changed. I'd just like to know how you feel about it. 'Cause I'm going to move it as it is, and we're going to have a vote on it the way it is, I hope. And would you rather see it fail, or would you rather see the date changed?
We are committed to the second Monday in October.
Thank you. So with that, I understand the rhetoric today has been passionate, but it's passionate, in my opinion, for a good reason. When a wrong has existed for as long as this wrong has existed, people get passionate about wanting to change it. When people have been subjected to the results of those wrongs, they are passionate about it, and they sound passionate when they make their presentations. And I'm guilty of that myself occasionally, and sometimes that goes off into hyperbole, and I'm good at that too. But I'm going to move the resolution as it exists.
Okay. Is there a second?
Can I make? I spoke 2 weeks ago about the need to recognize the contributions of our indigenous peoples, but I think it's important to number one, be careful when you say things like your people or you people, or I mean, I think it was pointed out that indigenous peoples is incredibly diverse. It's not homogenous. There are countless numbers of tribes, languages, culture. I mean, ultimately, this was an event that took place between the Lucayan people and Columbus and his 1,500 men in the Bahamas. I don't know how many descendants of the Lucayan people are here today, but it's not just about indigenous peoples, which I think is important, but it's important to my 11, 12, and 14-year-old children and all Americans. And that's really just what I want to mention today, is that our federal government made a mistake. They made a tremendous mistake when they made it about Columbus. They didn't say Italian American Day. They didn't just say Discoverers Day. They said Columbus Day. And as Mr. Smalley very eloquently pointed out, my children will now be asked to recognize and question, why is the federal government wanting us to emulate or recognize this person? And they're becoming politically astute, and they're reading, and they're beginning to hear things. I mean, I talked with my children all weekend, and I appreciate this effort because it allowed me to have the conversation with my children, that this was a man who was very myopic, who was obsessed with gold, who felt that if he who possesses has all he needs in the world, And he went back to the Queen and he got 17 ships and 1,500 men, and he instituted a historical trauma that was mentioned today. It was a historical trauma in which peoples were given a tribute system to try and produce as much gold as possible. That was the whole purpose of Columbus's mission. And he stepped so far out of bounds that his own peoples, he was eventually arrested and had to be pardoned by the king. He had the Bishop of Chiapas saying things like, such inhumanities and barbarisms were committed in my sight as no age can parallel. My eyes have seen these acts so foreign to human nature that now I tremble as I write. There was systematic, not just, unfortunately, the Lucayan people had gold around their necks, so he figured it out. So he instituted a tribute system where you had to bring a thimble of gold dust every 3 months. And if you did, you got a little piece of copper, which was like a get out of jail free card for about 3 months. If you didn't have it, you could have your hands cut off. And there are estimates of as many as 10,000 people who died without their hands because they were cut off. I had to explain to my children the sex slave industry and how they, at 12 and 14 years old, were too old. According to Columbus, in a letter in the year 1500, there are plenty of dealers who go about looking for girls. Those from 9 to 10 are now in demand. It was 9 and 10-year-old girls that were most in demand. It was those kind of girls that Columbus gave to his lieutenants as a reward. Those are the kind of things that occurred. It is a historical trauma. There were Monteria Infernal, where the Lucayan people were chased by war dogs and eaten alive. It was so much further than anything we see in today's news with ISIS. We see a few beheadings, but there were systematic beheadings. There were systematic people eaten alive by war dogs that goes so far beyond anything that we see from ISIS in today's news. And yet my children are asked by the federal government to recognize this gentleman. It is a historical trauma, and Columbus is on trial. It is important to reject the federal government's request that we honor this war criminal and this person who was so far out of the norms, even of that time, that his own people ended up arresting him and condemning the barbarism that he instituted. And so for my children and for all the children, I would ask that this council vote to reject Columbus Day and approve the resolution.
Oh, Pete's made a motion. Is there a second? Okay. All right, everybody ready to vote? All right, cast your votes. And the motion fails 3-5. Motion fails 4-5.